I'm Scott Hambrick.
I'm Carl Shute.
And I'm Trent Jones.
And today on the Music and Ideas podcast, we're going to talk about some kind of weird stuff. Some black steel guitar gospel music from the South. It's its own thing, and it's very interesting to me, and I'm very proud of them for having done it. And so there you go. It's one of my little hidden treasure things. Maybe I hope you guys
from a particular area in the South.
Oh man, yeah. This is hyper regional.
Right?
Hyper regional. The music genre is called sacred steel guitar, right? And from the Info Galactic page, because you come to podcasts, just have somebody read up wiki to you, right? But it says sacred steel.
Well, not wiki though.
That's true. Not the leads to bedwetting. Sacred steel is a musical style in an African-American gospel tradition that developed in a group of related Pentecostal churches in the 1930s. The Church of the Living God, the Pillar and the Ground of the Truth, was founded in 1903 by Mary Magdalena Lewis Tate. Following her death in 1930, the church divided into three branches known as the Keith, Jewel, and Lewis dominions. The steel guitar was embraced in the worship of two of these dominions, the Keith Dominion. Officially, the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and the ground of the truth without controversy, headquartered in Nashville, and the Jewel Dominion, which is the church of the living God, pillar and ground of the truth, which he purchased with his own blood, Inc., headquarters in Indianapolis.
Inc.
Yes. Brothers Troman and Willie Eason introduced lap steel guitar to worship services in place of the traditional organ there. When this new instrument was met with great enthusiasm and taken up by others, blah, blah, blah. So this is a regional thing, kind of limited to two very small Protestant denominations. I don't know a lot about it, but I would suspect that there isn't certainly more than 50 congregations that are in these two different sects. And, this is a very small regional thing. And I love it very much. The energy, the creativity, I just love it.
Hold on.
Hold on.
1903?
Yes.
Could you do a steel guitar without amplification?
Well, no. That started happening in the 30s and 40s.
Okay.
Is when the steel guitar came in here. And according to this, nobody's really written anything about this. This is so fringy and strange that there's not a lot of information out there. And I have never gotten to attend one of these services. Though if I was within a drive of one, I would. A short drive. My understanding is, they couldn't afford an organ, and somebody's got a steel guitar, Willie Eason in particular, and he shows up and uses his steel guitar to fill the role that the Hammond organ with the Leslie rotary speaker would have filled in a black evangelical Pentecostal church in 1940. So,
Yeah,
you'll see it on television, maybe, if you've been lucky enough to go to an AME service or something, you will have actually seen this in person, where the preacher is preaching and the organ is acting in call and response to the preacher. The organ is punctuating the preacher's points. The organ is serving to raise the energy in the room and to drive these people into this revelatory state. And the choir will help do that, and the organ is instrumental in that. And what if you don't have the money to buy an organ because you're a new startup called the House of God, which is the Church of the Living God, the Pillar and the Ground of the Truth without Controversy, Inc. And one of your guys has got a steel guitar. Well, we try it out, and the steel guitar works a treat in that role.
So, dear listener, if you haven't been to one of these churches, perhaps you've seen that glorious movie about my neck of the woods, the Blues Brothers. When they go into the church and James Brown is the preacher, and the dancing starts. That's what it's like. So you have you preach, and then there's a music hit. It's very weird. I have a friend that comes to our church who comes out of, I think he was a Methodist pastor at one point. He's not anymore. And you're not expected to just sit and listen. You're expected to respond, and he still does. And he's like, "Amen. That's right." And it's in this Byzantine Catholic Church. You're like, this is weird. This is not our thing, but it's his thing. Well,
and he's not
add
wrong.
to that music.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, I was trying to find a good example of this, and I couldn't find one. But I've heard it before. When you go to these churches and you hear the pastor, the preaching and the singing, they all run into each other. Like he'll be preaching his sermon, and then when he needs to enunciate or make a point, he'll kind of sing the line, the next line, and then the organ will get a little organ stab in agreement, and then he might sing a little bit more, and it kind of goes from like talking to shouting to singing, and then everybody comes in and the music goes, and we've got a song now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all just kind of blends together. It's wild. It's crazy. It's 2 hours long at least.
And it's pretty wonderful, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So I think one of the cool things about the steel guitar, like, at first I'm kind of like, I had the reaction like, man, why steel guitar? Like, of all the instruments you could pick to replace the organ, why would it be steel guitar? But one of the things that I was reminded of is there's this movie a while back, It Might Get Loud, and it had Jack White, the guy from Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, and I think The Edge in it. He got lost somewhere and he ended up in the movie. But Jack White, the best scene in the movie that he's in is at the very beginning. He sits there and he's got a couple blocks of wood, and the scene is just him constructing a little, primitive slide guitar. He basically has got a couple blocks of wood. He nails a couple nails in there, takes some string, stretches it across both ends, and he's got this pickup nailed to a board underneath the string, plugs it into a little amp, and he starts playing with a glass bottle from the neck of like a beer bottle or a wine bottle. And he starts playing slide guitar on this thing. And, that's like the cheapest guitar that you're going to get, I think, in the rural South, is a slide guitar. And that's how it often was done, is if you can get a piece of string and a couple nails, you can nail it up to the side of your house or wherever, whatever you got, and then take an old bottle, break the neck off, slip it on your finger, and now you got a slide guitar. You've got an instrument. So it's actually a really resourceful instrument.
Yeah, because the hard part of making a guitar, well, an electric guitar, is the neck and the frets.
Yeah.
You have to do
it requires
some
some
math for that.
craftsmanship. Yeah.
It not only is it an inexpensive way to get an instrument, it happens to be really expressive. The fact that it doesn't have the frets, and that it is electrified, and frankly that it's on your lap like a desk, makes it really, really very expressive, and in some ways maybe more expressive than the electric guitar. Not having the frets and using the slide means that they can play in between the frets, in between the notes, and they can have a vibrato that you just can't hardly get with a regular guitar. And then you add a couple of pedals, like a wah pedal and a volume pedal, and now they can get some of the same effects that you would get out of your pipe, out of your electric organ with the Leslie rotary cabinet. And it's just a perfect fit for the gospel scene, I think.
Yeah. Can you play just a little bit of the first song on your playlist? And I want to talk about that a little bit, just like the cool things you can do with the slide guitar, and then we can get into the rest of the playlist where you'll hear all that stuff.
Yeah, this first song is from the album. It's a compilation album. It's called Sacred Steel. I think this one's actually volume 2. I think it's called Joyful Sounds by Glenn Lee.
All right. We'll get to the rest of it in a second here. So I just love how that starts because first of all, the tuning of this, I'm going to be off. I'm going to try to demonstrate this with an electric guitar, so it's not the same thing. And I'm going to be off because I'm actually tuned to, what we would call E standard today with modern tuning. This recording is like a quarter tone sharp or something. I was trying to get the pitch, and it's way off, but in a cool way. But like the first note, you hear the essence of the slide guitar. So he kind of like slides up into the note, like. It's somewhere in between a note, right? So if I fretted the same thing, it's sharper, right? That would be bang on, but the slide, he kind of leaves it just a little bit flat, like. And that's the coolest thing about the slide guitar is you can get all these cool tones out of playing around with pitch because you're not bound by the fret. If you press down on a fret, it's going to put you exactly where the maker of the guitar chose to put the pitch of that note. And we've talked about this before in our temperament episode, that the guitar is equal tempered. So every note on the guitar is an approximation of the pitch because they're trying to make all the notes the same distance apart from each other. And the frets are straight across too, right? So it's mechanically how it works. But with a slide guitar, you're freed from that. You can put the pitch wherever the heck you want it. And that's the coolest thing about it is you can leave it flat, you can go sharp, you can push it all over the place, and it's fun. So I just love that. That first little note is that's the slide guitar.
I don't think you're off key enough. I think you're too bound by your ears.
I think so, yeah. The actual note when I was playing along the recording is like somewhere around there. So it's about a quarter tone, maybe a little more up from where I was.
Carl is not amused.
No, I think it's cool. I mean, that was that episode we did might have been esoteric and weird, but I think it's really important. So, dear listener, go back. I don't know what number that is. I don't have our episodes memorized. But we did one on temperament. Temperament is where the notes fit in the scale. And like Trent was saying, we've divided the octave up into 12, but you can't really divide an octave up into 12 and have any of those 12 be actually in tune. And so the music you're used to listening to, it's all a little bit off, but it's a little bit off equally everywhere. And you don't need to sing the note or play the note in the spot that the piano tells you.
Yeah, your voice.
Yeah. It can be wherever you want it.
Your voice and your steel guitar doesn't have frets.
Right. It will be more expressive if it is not. We have a Slack over at Online Great Books, which you can join if you join us. And I posted something a while back. There was a guy on YouTube, I guess, who's a sound engineer, and he was showing the difference between auto-tuning people singing and auto-tune fixes it. It puts people's notes in the 12-tone equal tempered scale. Most of the stuff you hear now is auto-tuned or sung as if it were auto-tuned. And but if you listen to the people that you actually like, if you listen to Bill Withers, none of his notes are in tune. And if you auto-tune him, he just sounds, he doesn't sound soulful anymore. He doesn't sound expressive. Frank Sinatra is the same way, although he doesn't play with it nearly as much as Bill Withers. Led Zeppelin, anybody you want to name that's really actually cool, they're playing games with the pitch.
Yeah, it's just one more creative tool that's available to the musician who has something to say. I guess I should say maybe a little bit more about the steel guitar. Trent says you can get a board and drive some nails in there and stretch wire over it and put a pickup, some sort of magnet under there and get a steel guitar. True. That's what they are. The lap steel is a board. It has a fixed scale, means, it's however long it is. And they typically have 6 or 8 strings. There are some 12-string ones out there, but most of them have 6 or 8 strings, and some of them have multiple necks. You know, you've seen Jimi Hendrix play that crazy guitar, or the guy at Cheap Trick. Well, they'll have 1, 2, 3, or 4 necks on a lap steel guitar. I have a friend that has Leon McAuliffe's, I think, 4-neck Fender lap string guitar, or lap steel guitar. He was Bob Wills' steel guitar player. That thing is heavy. The case is ridiculous. It's like hauling a desk with you. And it has these 4 legs that you screw on the bottom of it. And the legs are actually microphone stands, or pieces of old microphone stands that would screw into the black cast iron bases, and it has a cane tip on it. And that's what Fender shipped them with. And they will extend because they're microphone stands. So some of these Sacred Steel guys you'll see play their lap steel from standing. And if they have 1 neck, typically these guys tune their guitar so that it plays an E7 chord. If you strum the guitar with no steel on it, without the tone bar, they call it, on there, that makes an E7. Would you like to make an E7 for these people, Trent? There it is. But with the 6-string, and particularly the 8-string, the bottom strings are going to be lower than your standard guitar string. So you're going to hear some deep basses out of this. Now, they'll have other necks because they want to be able to play different chords. So you'll often see a 7th chord, you'll often see a 6th, and you'll often see a minor. It depends on what kind of band you're in and what you want to do, but you have all those different necks so that you can play different chords. Now, a talented and experienced player can move that tone bar kind of diagonally and kind of move it around, and they could play triads or double stops and get some other intervals there. But that's why they have multiple necks. Now, the pedal steel you hear in modern country music, and you'll hear some of that today, ain't a lap steel. They typically will have 8 strings, and they're tuned to something. Maybe they're tuned to A6. But if you stomp a pedal, it will tighten or loosen one of the strings, allowing the player to bend that pitch on the fly and also change the chord that the guitar is tuned to.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's a lot like the harp.
That's exactly right.
I have a daughter who plays the harp, and it's lovely. I like listening to it. But she has the lever harp. So if you want to change from C major to play an F, you got to flat the B's, and maybe you flat the E flats depending on what you want. But she has to go in and flip them. You got a pedal. You press the pedals on the bass. Then it will change that for you, and you can do stuff on the fly. The problem is they're $10,000.
Yeah,
maybe she should play pedal.
These steel guitars aren't much different. If you go buy a Showbud steel guitar, that's a company that Shot Jackson and Buddy Emmons, who were famous steel guitar session players in Nashville, created because they couldn't get the instruments they want. You're going to pay $5,000-$8,000. You're going to pay big money for those things. We went and watched Dale Watson the other night in a house, Carl. There were 43 people in there. He had his full band with him in Joplin. It was killer. His steel guitar player is Don Paulak. Mm-hmm. They call him Don. And he said on the mic there that playing a pedal steel guitar is like flying a helicopter. I don't know, but it's a lot more difficult than you've really got to know your music theory.
Yeah, there's kind of so there's an interesting thing because like with the guitar, you're moving your fingers around to create different shapes with your hand so that you can create chords. With a steel guitar, you've only got, like you said, a tone bar, so you can really only play straight across the neck. Now, Scott, you mentioned you can kind of move it diagonally a little bit, but not a whole lot, right? You're not going to make a big spread out chord like you could with a guitar with frets. So the tuning is interesting. You got to really understand your tuning and how that's going to fit with the song. But it kind of creates this cool sound, and we heard it there in that first song. The little lead melody is playing around this E chord, right? So there's a rhythm guitar. It's going like something like. And then we have a lead come in that's like. Well, he's really just playing around with the chord change of E major to A. And when you do that on a slide guitar, you've got to be aware of sort of like the thirds and the fifths of the chord, right? So so when he's playing that little, we've got the kind of the basics of an A major chord right there, right? And I can cheat because I have frets. I can put my fingers in different spaces. But if you're going to do that with a slide, you have to be able to like actually move your slide across the strings. So you got to be thinking vertically in the entire time rather than sort of putting your fingers in different places. It's kind of hard to describe without seeing it in front of a guitar. But
this. Well, we can go on. Let's listen to a little bit more. I want to play just a chunk of joyful sounds again. Remember, it's worship music. I think it matters. It's a catchy little tune. So, man, that's simple. It's a drummer, a rhythm guitar player, and a steel guitar player. That's it. Couldn't hardly be more simple. But it's interesting to me. Of course, it's got the steel guitar, which is completely unique, and then it has a sort of a funk rhythm guitar. And by itself, I mean, I don't know. No disrespect to Glenn Lee, who is playing this. It's sort of garage band stuff. His improvisation is staying, inside these chords. So he moves that bar up and down the quote unquote neck of the steel guitar, and his note choices are firmly inside the 6 or 8 note choices he has where that bar is placed. So it's not stunning technically, but it shows that somebody without a lot of training and a lot of practice can go to church, play this thing, and do something that's interesting and helps their service along. This is gospel punk, maybe, Trent. I don't know.
I think it's really cool, though, like the way that he plays the notes. He could play it like the Allman Brothers, right? Which is kind of, man, this first song, I was like, oh, this sounds like the Allman Brothers ripped this off, this style. But it's very major sounding, right? You're gonna have all those notes in it, right? But I love the way that he's very staccato with his playing. He's like, and he's also very syncopated too, right? There's a lot of rhythm happening in just the melody of the steel guitar playing. I think that's really cool. He doesn't just play them, big flowy like.
I want to point out that the Allman Brothers are from Daytona Beach, which is not too far from where this music would be.
Yeah, a lot of these folks are in the panhandle of Florida. The Infogalactic page, talks about the roots in Indianapolis and in Nashville, but some of the best of these guys are from the Florida panhandle.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. We want to hear some more.
You mean there's
primitive
culture,
stuff?
Scott? You mean there's culture there?
Yeah, but of course, it's only black people at black churches that have culture. Everybody else is just fucking around, stealing stuff, right? So this is real culture. And then anything I do is a fraud and is a theft. And if I enjoy their music, they are left lesser as a result.
Oh gosh, I didn't mean to push the button that hard, but
I did.
The regional culture thing I think is very cool. And I mean, all of that stuff. I don't know where I want to go from this. I pushed the button and then Scott went with it, and there's other issues there. That's certainly true. The way we talk, some people are allowed to have culture and everything. I just wanted to point out that this little tiny region, the Florida Panhandle, nobody goes to the Florida Panhandle,
right?
Except the people that live there. It's the place you drive through to get to Orlando. Orlando, where you have sanitized culture from every place else, which is the same as every place else.
Yeah. Have you ever heard Adam Carolla play Germany or Florida?
No.
Well, on the Adam Carolla podcast, don't listen to it because, I'll give you all the best, listener. I'll give you all the best parts of their show here. Now, he plays this show. He used to do it on this game. He used to do it on Loveline, where somebody would call in and they would read this news story that was terrible, like where somebody ate somebody else's face, or somebody boiled a dog and then nailed it to a tree. These crazy news stories. And Carolla's thesis was that that crazy kind of stuff only happens in Germany or in Florida. So people would call in and read these crazy stories, where and then he would have to guess Germany or Florida. Anyway, this is from the part of Florida where that shit happens. That's what I'm saying. It's a long way to go.
Yeah, so I just, at some point, I wanted to talk about regionalism. This is, it's unique music that only happened or that came out of a particular place. And we generally don't get regionalism anymore. I mean, my particular parish, it's a regional parish from Central Europe. And I have nothing ethnically in common with them, but it's up in the mountains, in Carpathian Mountains, that these churches where they do what I love, which is they sing, chant, and harmonize it improvised. Okay? The Russians don't do it. The Serbs don't do it. The Ruthenians do it. It's this little group that's isolated. So if you don't have little groups that are somewhat isolated, you don't end up with the tasty little regional cultures. Everything's just the same. All the music's going to sound like a Disney soundtrack. Boring.
Yeah. One of the few TV shows that I will watch anymore is the Great British Baking Show, because of the lovely little bits of regionalism you get to see. And the current season, I'm pretty miffed, because the two best bakers in the group in the current season are from Germany and Italy on the Great British Baking Show.
Yeah, what?
It's like, what? Like, what? And but there was some earlier on, before they were eliminated, there were some fantastic bakers from there was one girl, a young girl, I think she was like 17 or 18, from Scarborough. The bizarre accent, from somewhere off in the far-flung northeastern parts of the country. And but yeah, you get all these cool little town accents, and they all have their little the particular way that they make their bakes, or the particular type of I was about to say cookie, I should say biscuit, that they would make, whatever. But with this music, and I think we should get on and listen to a little bit more. But one thing I want to point out is that this is like the sound of the Allman Brothers, but also the sound of this first song is that if you were elsewhere in the South, if you weren't in the Panhandle, here's what you would hear around that E chord. You would hear something like... But you don't get that. Instead, you hear like... whatever. And that's like, it's a hopeful, joyous sound that's the opposite of the blues.
The steel guitar player can't even play those notes. He can't even play those. Well, he can, but not without great difficulty. He can't even play all those notes that you played in that blues scale. So here's a little refresher, joyful sounds. Real simple, very simple. And this art form has continued to develop since 1930, 1940 when it was created. And here are the Lee Boys playing the same tune. This has become a sacred steel standard. These regional folks have got their go-tos, and Joyful Sounds is one of them. Here's the more modern take on it.
They fixed the rhythm guitar.
It's in tune.
Think they're passing the offering dish around right now?
Yeah,
I hope so.
So, you got that guitar on your lap, or maybe you're standing, but it's a console kind of a thing, kind of like a piano. And you've got that slide in your right hand. They call it a tonebar, but it's typically metal when they play these. And in the left, their left hand, they will wear a thumb pick and 2 or 3 or 4 finger picks. So the really good steel guitar player can do some crazy finger picking stuff. And you see, you're starting to hear that there with the Lee Boys there and their Joyful Sounds, the more staccato, quicker playing. Particularly that staccato sort of percussive effect that the steel guitar player is playing with those metal finger picks. Yeah.
Can I ask you to play track 1 again and then track 11 again?
Track 1?
Because the Glenn Lee version, because the rhythm guitar changed.
Yeah.
And you mentioned GarageBand. The rhythm guitar in track 1, to me, it's like the rhythm guitar I would play, because I would screw it up in a cool way. It's like he's going from an, I don't know what key it is, but he's going from an A to a B. He's just sliding his finger up. He's not going to a chord that's in the harmony. He's just moving his hand up. And they fixed that in track 11, and it's not as neat to me.
Right.
So if you listen to the rhythm guitar.
I agree. Yeah, let's listen to this, the first track, Glenn Lee's Joyful Sounds. Click.
The second chord he plays.
Yeah.
That one. Okay, now let's go listen to the Lee Boys.
So it has that oddness to it. And then the Lee Boys said, that was odd, let's fix it.
From their album, Say Yes.
Flattened it out.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you learn the right way to do stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's what I think what it is like, I can imagine the producer sitting there is like, because it's a major second that's in there. So because when you go to that A chord, what he's doing in the first track is that guitar player is leaving the B, like you said, Carl, over the A chord. So you get that going on. It's like a little bit of dissonance. It's a major dissonance, but it's a dissonance. Like, But yeah, that I can imagine, like, the producer being like, "Oh, hold on, something sounds kind of weird or muddy or something." It's like, hey, leave that B out of there. You got some dissonance going on. But that's what makes it to me is like, you're not supposed to do that. It's great.
Let's listen to Willie Eason. He's really a big deal in this movement. Like he's a really big deal to 300 people in the world.
Yeah, well, I'm internet famous for, a couple of people.
This is Little Wooden Church on a Hill.
It was in my childhood days, many years ago. Spirit of the Savior, I was filled. It was in an old-fashioned meeting. My spirit, it lingers still in that little wooden church house, sits on a hill. And when that
So, this is very interesting to me because he is doing something you don't hear very much when the steel guitar is used in other genres. The steel guitar is really probably, this is a claim, but I think this is almost right. It's probably the oldest of the electrified instruments. It started out, you could buy a national brand Hawaiian guitar in the late 30s. So in the Western swing world, you would see people playing national steel guitars through pretty bad amps in the late 30s, long before anybody plugged in an electric guitar, a regular electric guitar. So in Western music, you'll hear the steel guitar, and then in what they would call it Hawaiian music. And the steel guitar is always accompanied. But these guys don't care about that. They actually play a lot of rhythm guitar. They strum the steel guitar a lot. And then here, he doesn't have another guitar player with him. This is just him sitting at a steel guitar playing this song. He's playing all the rhythm stuff. So he's having to palm mute the strings because you can't mute with your left hand like you can on an electric guitar. And he's accompanying himself. No, they don't do that in country music. You'll never go see An Evening with Alan Jackson, and he sits with a steel guitar. They don't do that. Nobody does that. And I love that because nobody told them they couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's like it's not supposed to be a solo instrument.
Yeah.
But they don't. Yeah. That's who said that? Who makes the rules?
Willie don't care. So he does a Little Wooden Church on the Hill, which somebody would have played, a regular guitar, a standard guitar, and sang, or maybe the organ with a singer. Well, he goes, they have a church meeting, and Willie would have played this, and he did, and this is a recording of that. Here's another one of him, which I think is fascinating. It's 6 minutes long. Franklin D. Roosevelt, A Poor Man's Friend. What did you guys think of this thing?
It was very detailed.
It's so detailed. Maybe we should play it before we steal.
Why'd you like Roosevelt? Well, no kin. Why'd you like Roosevelt? Well, no kin. Why'd you like Roosevelt? Well, no kin. Lord God Almighty was a poor man's friend. Year of 1945, a good president laid down and died. I knew how all of the poor people felt. They received the message, we lost Roosevelt. In his life, there were all indications that Warm Spring, Georgia, he would see salvation. Listen, friend, don't you rush. Elizabeth Shamanoff, she grabbed a brush.
what that means.
in water and began to paint. Looked at the president and began to think. She never painted a picture for him at night. Knew that the president didn't look right. The time of day, it was 12 o'clock. Tell me that Elizabeth had to stop. Good God Almighty, she started too late. That's why they call this that unfinished portrait. A little bit later, about 1:30, he had a cerebral hemorrhage and the world looked muddy. They call Atlanta, Washington too, like zigzag lightning. The call went through. They called long distance to notify his wife. Dr. Bruin said he died at 3:35. Great God Almighty, wasn't no bells to tone. Less than 30 minutes, the world was in moan. And I cried about Roosevelt. I cried about Roosevelt. I cried about Roosevelt. Well, Roosevelt's administration, Congress assembled. First time
I love it.
part of the Negro general.
I don't think he and I see eye to eye about FDR, but I love that he did it, you know?
So he says, I cried about Roosevelt, and then you get the interplay of the instrument with the voice, which you're going to hear in some of this other stuff too, which I thought was interesting, that it's not so much, the traditional electric guitar in a rock band. The singer sings for a while, and you have rhythm guitar beneath it maybe, and then the singer stops, and then the guitar plays a solo. Not so in this stuff. It's all at the same time, or intertwined with each other.
Yeah, I think that's definitely that gospel bleed over, with the call and response thing. This reminded me of R.L. Burnside.
Yeah.
Well, so R.L. Burnside is a North Mississippi blues guy, and he's an interesting cat because he's not Delta blues, which we heard a lot of when we did our blues episode. And one of the things that R.L. Burnside was known for doing when he would play shows is he would recite these, I think they call them toasts, but it's like an African-American tradition that came over from the Caribbean, so West Africa, Caribbean, kind of somewhere in that transition. There are these sort of narrative folk poems that are somewhat improvised as well. And they're these long, drawn-out stories with lots of, strange details.
You mean like the Iliad?
Yeah.
Homer
one
had
could
a
say
steel
that.
guitar.
Steel lyre. But anyway, so he's got one that you can find called Tojo Told Hitler, where he tells this ridiculous story about, ringing up Adolf Hitler, and it's pretty profane. So I think we should probably leave it off this podcast. But it's entertaining. But it's kind of this kind of odd and part of African American culture that we don't really hear much today. Although the vestiges of that are in hip hop, and I think that's kind of some of the origins of hip hop.
I'm not joking about Homer. Okay.
Yeah.
Seriously, epic poetry, this is what it was. So if you want to know what the Iliad might have been like, it's like Franklin D. Roosevelt, a poor man's friend.
He died at
it's
3:35. It's just this litany of facts about it,
Yeah, swift-footed Achilles rose in the assembly and said to Agamemnon, "You won't take my honor." You could make it, it's the same thing. It was accompanied by music. We don't know what the music sounds like, but it's rhythmic, and it was, you would sing it and have an instrument. You would probably be the instrumentalist if you were, Homer. You'd be sitting there doing a very similar thing to what Willie Eason is doing.
Probably.
Yeah, I have to imagine the lyre didn't have much in the way of, tuning or polyphony. You could only play a few strings on it. You could only tune them a certain way. So yeah, you'd probably be doing something very similar. You could maybe you could play 2, maybe 3 chords, and you just kind of just switch between them, to create that call and response thing.
Gentlemen, it's time for the return of the epic. It's time. You just need a noble subject and a musician / poet equal to the task.
I've got some ideas.
there's vestiges of it. There's vestiges of it in this music. You're right to say. I think. I mean, the only working poets now are rappers. They just need to make epics instead of, well, I would prefer they do epics.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you guys like to hear next?
Praise the Lord, everybody.
Praise the Lord, everybody. This is Henry Nelson, still from that Sacred Steel traditional sacred African American music is the name of that album. We'll play it again here. Praise the Lord, everybody. This is live. Oh, wait a minute. Before we get out of the Franklin D. Roosevelt thing, the poor man's friend, if you ever get to go to an AME service, you'll hear something like this. The band's vamping, and they're just telling this Bible story over the band vamping. And that's what he's doing. He's teaching us about FDR while the band's vamping. The Soul Stirrers did a little bit of that. They're telling these Bible stories with this call and response, and it's gospel music, darn it. Carl says,
would you like it better if he said, and then Franklin D. Roosevelt took us off the gold standard?
I would. Let's tell some truth about it. Yeah. About their, he and Stalin's love affair. That'd be awesome. Carl told me, he's like, man, I wish they would do this stuff over, traditional Catholic hymns. They can do it their way, but why can't we have the theology right? Yeah, I know.
Quibble.
You can't have it all. Praise the Lord, everybody. Live, Henry Nelson.
So listen to how the steel guitar is interlaced with her voice. Presume that's a woman.
I think I know the lyrics. I've memorized it. There are two steel guitars here, by the way. There's one in my right ear, and then a quieter one in my left ear. Okay, there's 8 minutes of that.
Yeah. So
Oh, she's back.
whoever's playing the steel guitar, I guess is that Henry Nelson? He's not letting there be any gap. The sound is going to be filled out. He's playing somewhere near the register that she's singing. I think he might be up an octave sometimes. That's unusual. Usually don't do that. You leave room for a singer. He's not leaving any room, and he's filling it in. It's
what's the purpose of this music?
No silences.
He's serving the purpose of the music by doing that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think so if we think about a pop song, right? Now, what happens at the end of every single pop song when you're doing the chorus, the last chorus, which is usually, maybe it's a double chorus, you sing it twice. What's always happening on the very last double chorus of the song? There's all these vocal ad-libs, right? There's the main melody, and then there's all these little melismas and runs and stuff, and there's 14 Katy Perry's all singing at the same time. Now that's trashy pop music, but it has a reason. It's taken from this kind of thing where it's just this jubilant, over this gushing sort of celebration, and everyone's lifted up. The music is the rhythm is double time.
So
we've got
it's
singing,
artificial
steel
praise
guitar.
music.
Well, I think they stole it from praise music, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's artificial. It's we're going to take we were talking about Katy Perry before we started rolling tape. And so you're going to make Dark Horse feel like a church service at the end.
Oh, yes. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a reason you do that. Like, we heard a little bit of, when we did our lyrics episode, I think, where we heard a little bit of that isolated Kelly Clarkson song. And you can hear, like, there's, like, all these stacks and stacks and stacks of vocals all on top of each other. Well, it's kind of trying to approximate what a chorus would do. An actual chorus of a bunch of people singing the same thing.
Yeah, and this no silence thing, if you grew up going to church and you went to a Western church, I mean, these are Western churches too, but if you went to, say, a Roman Catholic church or Lutheran church or something, probably a lot of silence in the service. There is a whole section of the church, capital C, for whom that is, you just don't do it. You can't have silence. Silence is death. You can't have it. So you got to fill up the space. You got to fill it up. You have to put music there.
My dear music teacher, Dick Gordon Jr., guitar teacher, he's like, Hambrick, all music is tension and release. Tension and release. It's a manipulation of the emotion in the animal with tension and release. They never release, man. This is 7 minutes and 55 seconds of just tension. They just keep cranking it up and cranking it up and cranking it up. So,
the release is when you go outside and have the cornbread or whatever they're eating at their picnic.
Well, at the end of this, there ought to be an amen and a resolution. I can't remember if there is. Let's see. Well, this one just fades out.
I don't think so.
But often there is, right? Yeah, and then you go out and, beans and cornbread. Let's see here. Let's listen to a little bit of Aubrey Gint's praise music. This is more of this sort of, if it's praise music, it's just that, right? This is that revelatory stuff. What?
This was amazing to me.
It's organic.
Crowds don't generally clap that well.
But these people are magical. There's that percussive rhythm on a steel guitar. You don't hear that anywhere else. So that crowd was clapping, and I think that was organic. There might have been a leader up there that got that going. I don't know, but that's pretty complex polyrhythm stuff, whatever. And they picked it up, and then the band lets them do it, and then they find a way to come back in without wrecking that, and then then they sort of transmute that back to the original beat, and then move on. Pretty skillful to kind of improvise with the crowd and not wreck the whole damn thing. Yeah.
It feels so smooth the way they do it. Yeah, like if you're playing a show and you ask the audience to clap, you're doing good. You're doing good if you can get them to clap on 2 and 4, not 1 and 3. Like there's at least a 50% chance when you're like, all right, come on, clap along. The lead singer starts, clapping. It's like, come on, let's go. The crowd's gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're like, well, nope. No, we're playing a backbeat here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you got to teach the crowd.
Okay, so this is very, very cool. The rhythmic complexity that they're able to do on the fly. It's fantastic. Go listen to some Baroque music. It's incredible. It is rhythmically complex. This is not a property of any particular culture. People who go to concerts and don't know how to play music, they can't clap.
Yeah. And the reason these people can do it is, one, they're talented. Like even the congregation is talented. But this is what they do every Sunday night and every Wednesday night since they were toddlers. This is what they do, and they're great at it, and I love them for it. Let's see. We've already gone about an hour. I don't feel like we need to do a deep dive on this thing like we do maybe Hilary Hahn's Bach work from a couple of weeks ago. What would you guys like to do next?
I like number 7.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here.
The House of God March.
Yeah, sounded like Bob Wills to me.
Yeah. Now this one's Aubrey Gint.
I just want to hear that. Aha! Pitch is negotiated.
Never hits a pitch square on the head. He's either sliding down or scooping up into it. He almost never leaves a pitch square either. He does whatever he can do whatever he wants to do with this. It's a perfect instrument for this guy. Aubrey Gint's one of the better ones. I kind of like them. I like them all that I put on this playlist. The playlist is called "I Need More Love." If you go to Spotify, you ought to be able to find that. I made it public, and go listen to some of this stuff. 2 steel guitar players here, by the way. 2. Who does that?
Nobody.
Right.
These guys.
Yeah, it reminds me of. Oh gosh, I saw a video from one of the Crossroads festivals from years ago. I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago, and Ben Harper has done a little bit of this stuff, and and it is performed. At the time, I didn't realize what I was watching, but yeah, it'd be kind of like dueling steel guitar music, and now I'm like, oh, this is what he was playing. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, there's some cool stuff like I'm Not Tired. This is kind of like more modern, produced, better produced stuff, I guess you'd say. Better being relative, but
some of these.
Yeah, but others kind of cool. Warren Haynes played on this track.
Yeah, some of these recordings are somebody brought, I don't know, like Smithsonian Folkways or whatever brought a portable recording deal, outfit to a church service. So some of these recordings aren't that great, but some of these at the bottom of the list here from the Lee Boys album Testify, I'm Not Tired, pretty polished.
I always like the grooves on these.
Oh, yeah. way. I'm not tired, I'm not weary, but I'm on my way by the life that I live. Horns? And the service that I give. I'm not tired, no, I'm not weary, but I'm on my way, I'm not tired, I'm not weary, but I'm on my way. I love that. I'm on my way. So, me being who I am, I put this in here and I wondered, does anybody know this song? Have you heard it anywhere else?
It sounded familiar to me.
Well,
I thought I'd heard it somewhere.
Well, there was this group called the Southern Tones. I know this because I'm me. That recorded this song called "It Must Be Jesus."
Oh, there's a man going around. Must be Jesus. Must be Jesus. Oh, yeah. Must be Jesus. There's a man. Must be Jesus. Going around. Must be Jesus. Taking names. Must be Jesus. Oh, Lord. Must be Jesus. No, he told.
Same song. Now, that's the earliest instance of that melody I'm aware of. Me being the weird guy I am, I'm like, I know this song. But the reason I knew that song is because Ray Charles stole it, and in 1957, he recorded.
That's where I heard it.
He recorded this one, "I've Got a Woman."
That's it. That's what I heard.
Well, I got a woman way over town that's good to me. Oh, yeah. Say, I got a woman way over town, good to me.
The genius. Ray Charles, that's a show we need to do.
Yeah, it's funny. So we were listening to it. My wife and I were listening to this in the car the other day, and she was like, she asked if this was a Ray Charles song, and I'm like, I don't know. As I tried to look it up, like, I'm not tired. No, I don't think so. But she was spot on.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, and Ray Charles had gotten that melody from "It Must Be Jesus" by Southern Tones, and didn't take him long, and he tuned that thing up and made it that hit. Let's see here, and then let's see. I think
Don't play Kanye. You're not going to play Kanye, are you?
Well, of course, it's not on here. John Mayer recorded it on one of his live albums. I think it's on Trio, which I don't think I can get here on Spotify because all these modern labels are, I don't know, they suck. John Mayer, is there anybody as good and as awful as that guy is? Like at the same time, is there anybody that's both things so much?
Yeah, it's like he's very punchable, but at the same time you can't help but respect the guy in his playing too. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, he's a great player. I've seen him live once, and he's great, man. He's the real deal. He's just, he's from Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he lacks the habitus, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to feel the blues when you're playing your, signature Paul Reed Smith through your $80,000, Alexander Dumble,
his Dumble
amplifier.
I'd like to try though.
Right.
It sounds good. It sounds amazing, but I don't know that that's not the same thing as the guitar tone on Joyful Sounds.
I've got
it's funny. I don't know if this is just me getting older, but I have a soft spot in my heart now for these like boxy, like kind of, they're, a lot of people would say they're just crappy guitar tones. Like it's probably just some practice amp that they got. It's all they had. They just set it up on the stage, plug their guitar in, and that's what they get. That's the sound they get.
Turn it up all the way.
And but they have so much character to them, Sometimes these amplifiers and this equipment that's too high fidelity, that sounds too good, it just doesn't work for the music. So I appreciate that about
me being me. I would stop you right there and say, what do you mean by good?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's really like it's a funny thing. So, guitar players, we're very obsessed with tone. And but you have to
'cause
ask
you can
yourself, where does
buy
it
it.
come from?
You can buy it. That's why. If you're a trumpet player,
Sort
you
of.
can't buy tone. You
Well,
just have to practice.
okay, but that the $400 Yamaha horn does not sound as good as a box Stradivarius, and that doesn't sound as good as whatever else is above that. And
I used to think so, and now I think if I grab Wynton Marsalis and I give him my secondhand old cornet that I've got on the floor over there, I think he's going to sound great.
Yeah.
Well, sure, yeah. Same thing. If I hand this, this is my little slide guitar I have here. It's just a super cheap, Asian-made Stratocaster. If I handed this to Warren Haynes, then yeah, he's just going to sound great on it. But I think what's interesting is like with the tone thing, like yes, equipment does affect the sound, the possibility of sounds you can get out of it. A better musician's always going to sound better. It's going to make better musical choices. But there's something interesting about the whole like what is good tone, to answer your question, Carl. I think what it is that all this expensive equipment that we've got is more or less designed to achieve an idealized version of something we've already heard before. And we end up just kind of chasing the dragon with this stuff. Whereas, the guys in the 70s who made all the classic rock that modern equipment now always tries to emulate, that's just all they had. They bought a Marshall because that was just the amp that was available. This one gets loud enough and distorts. Cool, I'll buy it.
So
what you do when you know the ins and outs of an instrument that is imperfect, you will play into those imperfections. Like, I mean, I know what notes are sharp and flat naturally on a trumpet. I know where that happens. I know on the singing voice, I know where my voice rings, and I know where it cracks. It rings around C and D, and then it cracks a little bit above D. And so if I'm singing, I know what notes I can get to be ringy, and I might hang on those notes, and I might avoid other ones. So you know the imperfections of maybe your amplifier, your guitar, and you work around it. And that where am I going with this? The limitations lead to creativity. And I think having no limitations kind of just paralyzes you.
go see our episode on Roy Buchanan. You were talking about, Trent, how you like those boxy sort of practice amps that they would use. And to Carl's point, if you're a poor guy and you save up your money and you get a steel guitar out of the Sears catalog and it comes with a practice amp, that's all you got, and you bring it to church and you play it. And maybe you're unhappy with that because it's a 3 or a 5 watt amp and it's all you can do to be heard over the congregation. You crank it up. But that old amp, that low wattage tube amplifier, isn't linear. So it doesn't do the same thing at low volume as it does medium volume or high volume. And in that way, it makes the guitar more like a voice because your voice isn't linear either. That's why Carl's cracks in one place and springs in another. And the steel guitar with the tone bar and the ability to bend the pitches, to scoop in and out of the pitches, and frankly, a crappy amp makes it more like the human voice. My favorite, and lots of people's favorite, old-time amp is a Fender Champ. The 5F1 Fender Champ amplifier had a 6-inch speaker in the beginning. Maybe the 5F1 had an 8-inch speaker. It's 5 watts. It has a tone knob, and then it has a volume knob. That's it. Everybody, here's some slide guitar. This is not lap steel. But everybody knows this stupid song. This is the only Eric Clapton that we will ever play on this show. It's Layla, and the reason we're going to play it is because it's Dwayne Allman playing a slide guitar through a 5F1 5-watt practice amp. This is a student model amp. If your kid wanted to play wanted to play guitar in the 50s, and you went and bought a starter guitar kit at the music store, this is the amp you would have gotten. So we don't need to play all of that because you guys know it. It's been effed out on classic rock radio for 40, almost 50 years now. But the soaring sounds are a great musician playing through the cheapest amp that you could possibly have gotten in 1956. And there's some of that here in this I'm Not Tired. Listen to, like, I'm going to play the first just little chunk of it before the vocals start. The Lee Boys do a really good job of making the steel guitar emulate the human voice and to take advantage of what the low range of the guitar will do in that amp. Moaning. So when he hits he's got steel finger picks on his left hand. When he hits those strings hard, that amp has a different tone and a different quality than when he hits it. When he may be using a plastic thumb pick, but when he picks more gently, we're going to go back and hear it. Hear the hard attacks here. Versus that. Anyway, the guy knows what he's doing with his amp. He knows what he's doing with the instrument, and he's getting all the good out of it. All the good out of it.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about those little amps. When you overdrive them like that non-linearity you're talking about. Part of it is it's the power transformer on the amp just crapping out. Like it just can't put enough power out to the speaker, and so it starts to sag. Like the voltage actually sags inside the power transformer. And I'm sorry, electrical engineers, I'm probably just totally butchering this explanation, but essentially that sagging electrical response, when it's trying to put out more power than it really can handle, causes it to squawk. And it's great. That's exactly what Carl's talking about. It's like, everyone's got some notes that they can sing that's right at the edge of your range. You start to kind of squeak out a little bit or squawk a little bit or just get distorted.
Oh yeah, singers will use it for expression. They know where their voice doesn't work, but they'll use the not working to make it. Louis Armstrong, for example. I want to give a brief analogy. Everybody likes regional cuisine. Okay. From various regions. The reason they cook like that is because they didn't have any other ingredients.
Right. No one would have used crawfish if they had anything else.
Yeah.
I want to play Robert Randolph.
So limitations lead to creativity.
Yeah, it's like the haiku or the sonnet, right? The constriction in the material is what makes it unique and interesting. I want to go play Robert Randolph and the Family Band, I Need More Love. You guys have probably heard this. If any of this got anything like popular, it was Robert Randolph in like 2002, 3, 4. He opened for Clapton for a little while. He was on the David Letterman show for a minute. It's killer. I got to see him live. It's a freak out. If you ever get to go see Robert Randolph and the Family Band, you've got to go. Got to go. It is a freak out. You'll leave exhausted. Like somehow they keep going and you can't. Let's go listen to I Need More Love.
Blowing through our neighborhood.
That is not a standard guitar. Robert Randolph's the finest. So he can play lead licks, and you think it's a standard guitar, and he plays wonderful rhythm on this pedal. This is a pedal steel.
Come on, get it.
Here we get it.
There's that distortion.
Steel guitar. Steel guitar funk rhythm.
Take the shackles up off your feet. Let the love flow, say, I can't walk up every day. Come on, that's it. Feel it. Get it. I can't walk up every
This guy, I saw an interview. he was he learned how to play in this House of God church. And he said until he was like 15, 16 years old that he hadn't listened to anything that wasn't in his church. Like he didn't know about the Allman Brothers. He didn't know about any of the blues guitarists you would think of, Buddy Guy, Muddy, none of those guys. Like he didn't know anything about that. And he heard Earth, Wind, and Fire and Sly and the Family Stone. He's like, that's it. And so when you get these albums of his, like he has albums that are pretty much just gospel, but even the ones that are more secular, which this one here is, Unclassified as the name is, this album, it still has this uplifting sort of gospel theme about it. Even if he's not hitting you over the head with the good book and the big message, he needs more love every day of his life. And just tears it up. Like, what's not to like?
I need less.
You need less? Yeah.
This whole playlist, it has made me wonder. It's like, well, how many popular songs have I heard that started as gospel songs because the musicians were gospel musicians before they played secular music?
Yeah.
We talked about it in the Sam Cooke episode. Part of the reason why he tried to get into secular music is because there was more money, and there was kind of some influential musicians in the 50s a little bit before him had paved the way to make that crossover. But it's like, how much stuff has been filtered down from the gospel scene, because that's where all the good musicians are.
Yeah.
That's where most of the working musicians are. The song that popped up in my head, you remember that hit by the band Los Lobos, Heaven? That was the one that was all over the radio. Or no, Los Lonely Boys. Los Lonely Boys. But that's straight up. That's straight up joyful noise.
Yeah, there's some tension there, because the churches need musicians. For 2,000 years, it's been musical, and yet musicians, we're like we are, of bad character. So you're gonna, so you go play in church, you go sing in church, and then you're gonna go do secular music. I mean, we were talking about Katy Perry before we started, and the Dark Horse song, apparently the lyrics are problematic. Well, she started out as a Christian rocker, so you go from the one to the other. I don't know where I'm going with this. Music is tricky.
Christian rock to I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It.
Well, that's called church camp. But
I saw her on the Warped Tour, by the way. Before she blew up, I saw her on the Warped Tour. It was like some screamo band. They play their little 25-minute set. They throw their stuff off the stage. She gets on for her like 4-song set in between like the next screamo band that's setting up. It was bizarre, but yeah, it was kind of funny. Like 6 months later, she was a pop star.
These Sacred Steel guys seems to me like have a lot of integrity. Like this Aubrey Gint, who's excellent. It's all gospel or he won't do it. Robert Randolph had some commercial success, but he's not going to be playing "I Kissed a Girl" or "Dark Horse," or whatever. It's
Of course, if he did "I Kissed a Girl," it wouldn't be at all weird.
you're right.
Yeah.
But he has some integrity. Here's "Going in the Right Direction." Robert Randolph and the Family Band. You hear the organ influence, right?
Yep.
I was lost. I thought that losing dice were tough. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have no one to turn to. I'm glad I found you just in time. Won't miss those things that I left behind. And now I'm going in the Cause now I'm going in the
Just killer.
Now I found
I hope everybody that listens to this
Yeah.
gets to go see him live. It's a force of nature. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't know that it's. Well, yeah, I don't know, Carl. I don't know if is it the nature of musicians to do things to play to corrupt themselves, or is the musical culture that they're in?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of musicians that were completely on the straight and narrow. Bach, maybe,
Yeah, he had a ton of kids though.
but they were with his wife.
Were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. How dare you, sir?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think
Well,
that,
the guy is like 30 something kids, right?
Well, I think 17 or 18. He had two wives, I believe.
Okay. All right.
Not at the same time.
yeah, he kept wearing them out.
I don't know.
We'll
I
have
think-
to get new ones.
I think there's probably a personality thing. If you're a musician, if you're a good musician, you're probably pretty open to things. Because you want to get new sounds, and if you're open to new sounds, you might be open to other stuff.
Yeah.
To be a good musician, you can't have a great deal of balance in your life. You have to forsake a lot of things and spend a lot of time with a stick of wood with strings, wires stretched on it, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
and then, the attention is not great. It's not good for us, right? You're in the spotlight, and getting the attention and adoration from people for this one thing. And maybe that's good, right? Maybe it's good that people appreciate Robert Randolph's work, but he needs to be really careful and make sure that attention he gets for his good works here don't bleed over.
I was thinking how strange it was. I was driving the other day, and I don't know. I probably heard so and so is coming to town, and there'll be concerts, and everybody's excited. And I'm thinking, this person makes sound on a box of wood, and it's going to fill a stadium. That's a little bit weird. We love music so much that it's not like this person really makes a cabinet very well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's fill a stadium and watch him do it. It's a little bit out of balance, the amount of attention. This is weird to say on a music show, but the amount of attention we give musicians, I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah.
I'm a little uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, it's super weird. Like,
Yeah.
I feel that way about sports. Sports. Good. Go play softball. But the attention that a professional baseball player gets is insane. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Same
I
thing.
think sports should be local.
Yeah. Hey, make music and sports local.
Yeah, I think this is the future of there's a lot of genres that are dead in the water today. I mean, pop, hip hop, rock, metal. They're all pretty dead. Like let's be honest. They're not really doing anything interesting at this point. They've all peaked. Let's put it that way. I think I could easily argue that. I think the way forward is probably to go back to this kind of gospel music. Like how could you say that Randolph and the Family Band doesn't rock? I mean, that's the playing is amazing. Like we didn't play the song, but on that on the Lee Boys album Testify, there's some ridiculous soloing. So if you want to be a shredder, man, go play this stuff.
Yeah. Robert
Great.
Randolph, God, I mean, he's just a virtuoso. He could do anything with that instrument. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And it shows you church music doesn't have to stink.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. It doesn't necessarily need to be this style of church music. You have your own regional style, have your own ethnic groups have their own styles, but you should do it well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take what
was
you've
thinking
got
about-
and do what you need to do, right? They had a steel guitar. They needed to do a church service, and they get started in the late 30s. We heard some of those kind of, frankly, more primitive efforts, and it culminates in like the Lee brothers, the Lee boys, and Robert Randolph. It's, go kick something off. You won't immediately be Robert Randolph. But he's standing on these people's shoulders and doing something awesome. And he's evangelized some people, I'm sure. He's made people's lives better through doing that. I saw him in Wichita, Kansas, and I was better for a little bit. I got the truck, and I wasn't any good anymore, but I was better for a little bit. Let's listen to Baptize Me, which is just one more little chunk of Robert Randolph. This is his more, straight-ahead gospel to give everybody a little flavor, and then we'll move on to the next show, maybe.
Dirty water, red clay mud. I need redemption, saved from the flood. Give me everlasting, immortal love. I'm barefoot and waiting. I'm washing the blood, y'all. I'm begging you, please, baptize me. Come on. I'm begging you, please, baptize me. Never seen it coming, looking at me that
Yeah,
way.
so freaking good.
Now all my blues
So good.
seem bright.
Muddy water and red dirt clay. They're going down to the river and getting baptized. Yeah, good for them. Well, what a great thing those people have created. And just, I think most people now with social media, social media, computers, everything being filmed, everybody having a camera in their pocket, people are too self-conscious to do something as odd as this. Because really, this is odd. It started out odd, and then it ends up being awesome. But can you imagine somebody's like, as we know, I've invented an instrument. I don't even know what it was. If I knew what it was, I'd invent it, and I'd show it to you guys. But somebody's like, I've invented a music instrument, and I'm going to play it at church on Sunday. Like the nards it would take to do that now, because knowing that it would be on everybody's social media, and the video of the first time you ever tried it would be everywhere. Like the stakes seem much higher to be an innovator now. Like the common thing that people say is that the stakes, it's easier to be an innovator. Oh, we have the internet and you can broadcast whatever you do, and there are no gatekeepers. No, everybody's a fucking gatekeeper now. Everybody's got their foot on your neck. Everybody's judging what you do. It's, we got a YouTube comment the other day. Let me go read this clown. Now, so Carl and I do the Online Great Books podcast, and we read difficult books and talk about them in a certain way. And we have roles. Carl's role is to be Carl, and my role is to be me, or what you fucking people who listen to this show think is me, which is fine, all right? It's infotainment. It's cool. But this guy says, time wasted chatting about the Hardy Boys. Philip Reef deserves better. He is only useful if you have grasped him. You only grasp him through consecutive reasoning. He just writes this tome about Philip Reef and a criticism of doing our, what we did. And we don't always do the best that we could have done, but we definitely do the thing that we do. Like our show is a certain thing. This show is a certain thing. It's not another show. But so many people feel like and think that it's okay for them to be critical of it stylistically.
Did he flash his credentials in that comment?
I don't even know. I should have screenshotted it before I muted him and blocked him.
As a
Screenshot
dot.
Oh, as a, no, he didn't do as a ... But hey, listen, if I make a mistake, an error of fact, let me know. I don't consider that to be a criticism. Hey, man, you're right. I'm sorry. Aubrey Kent started in 1943. That's fine. But when somebody critiques the style, that's just being an asshole.
Well, what it does is there's on gatekeeping. What we do here and at the other podcast is, I think, break down gatekeeping.
We try.
You can read Philip Reef if you want to, okay? You don't need to wait for the PhD to tell you what to think about it. You can listen to Robert Randolph. You can listen to Bach violin sonatas. You can do it. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you how to do it. And we're just a couple of guys, or three guys here. We're at least we're musicians to some degree, Trent actually does it more than the other two of us, but so we're not, complete morons on it, but we're just guys listening to music.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't go on that rant to gripe about people complaining about me. It's just to show that so many people, instead of ABC, CBS, and NBC being the gatekeepers, or Clear Channel Radio being the gatekeeper, it's this guy, Chip Sills, on YouTube, thinks he's a gatekeeper of me. Luckily, I'm high and disagreeably, and I got plenty of money, and the guy can go piss up a rope, and I'll keep producing and I'll keep creating. But if you're a 17-year-old young guy or lady who's invented an music instrument and is, thinking of debuting it at your church service, you're going to be terrified because that the trolls are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, right? It's there's not enough creating and there's way too much criticism. And, Scott, you've been on a tear recently on your blog talking about the nature of good and evil. And I think there's something to it that good creates. I mentioned on the last show about Bach that subcreation is what humans do. That's Tolkien's word for it. But that's what humans do. We take the materials of time and, musical pitches and the raw materials of the earth to put together instruments, and we decorate time with it in music. But we take the things that we have and we build something out of it. We create.
If we're good. If we're capital G good.
If we're capital G good. Criticism is only destruction.
Go read my 7 blog post rant at scotthamburg.com about the nature of good and evil. And so there is such a thing as constructive criticism. Hey, Trent, if you could do this next time, I think what you're doing, I think this thing that you are creating would be a little bit better. And in that way, I'm actually part of that creative process, right? Yeah. And that's really not a criticism. That's an additive thing. Hey, man, that low E string's a little out of tune. cool. We're creating something together that way. But hey, you suck and I don't like what you do. All right, go do something else. Go do your own thing. And I don't know. I hope that by pointing to this here and Jimmy Rogers and the bluegrass thing and the outlaw country thing and the blues show we did and the Sam Cooke show, even though that there are some excellences pointed out in there, I hope that somebody gets the nads to go do something new, because we're due for a new music, guys. Rap is pushing 50. And hip hop is just its weird kid. Rock and roll is pushing 80. I mean, country music's old, like Bach. I mean, come on. Like, we're due for a new music. And, somewhere there's a poor kid with a weird instrument and a weird sound in his head that has that new music. And they need to go do it, because I'm tired of this old stuff. So there.
I don't know. I kind of like the old stuff.
Well,
But you ought to go do some stuff. Go in your garage and get a friend and make some sound.
What are we
That's how
going
we
to
used to do it.
What are we going to do on the next show? I think I already know.
Yeah. Well, we had talked about doing a little Bing Crosby. And I think, since we're coming into the Christmas season, we ought to do a little special. That's because that's what we do on Christmas. It's a special season. Should celebrate it with some special music. I think we ought to do Bing Crosby, secular Bing Crosby, and then we ought to do Bing Crosby for Christmas as
His
well.
Christmas stuff's pretty secular, though.
Well, That's true. Yeah, White Christmas. There ain't much Jesus in White Christmas.
No. Well, I think that'd be great.
Carl's in charge.
I hope
Not
you
it.
guys will. Nope. Can't do it. Let me tell you why. Okay. He has 409 singles, 106 albums. He might be the most recorded voice in history.
Yeah.
So, putting together playlists is going to be a bit of a chore.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a stab at this, and I'm gonna screw it all up. But I'll share it with the two of y'all, and maybe you'll kind of put me back on
Yeah. And some
on
of
the
the
rails.
stuff, I was digging, some of the early stuff you can't find on Spotify.
I'll do secular Bing if you want to do Christmas Bing, or vice versa, Trent, whichever. Trent.
Sure. Yeah, we'll work it out.
How about we can all make a Bing playlist and then meld them.
3 shows.
It'll be-
No, 3 shows.
9 hours long.
Carl's Bing. Trent's Bing.
Yeah, he's a big deal. A lot of the music's really good. It's all good. A lot of it's really good.
So here's the question. This will be the first person we've done 2 shows on. Why is Bing worth 2 shows when Sinatra isn't, or whatever?
Because we haven't gotten around to the second show on Sinatra.
Fair enough. I will accept that answer. That is,
Well, yeah, I mean, this guy also, I've pointed out, he's kind of responsible for the whole history of recorded music after 1945. The tape machine.
Yeah, and in style. We can save this for the shows, but
there's so much to say.
The way
about
modern singers sing is all because of Bing Crosby.
Yeah, that'll be good. I like it. So I'll be listening for those things. Go to carlshoot.com. Check that, because he writes some things over there. I write some stuff at scotthambrick.com. I don't know what Trent does. What do you do, Trent? Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me at marmaladecream.com. That's the website for my audio business. You can see all the shows I work on. I produce, I've got 7 podcasts that I produce in various capacities right now. I have 3 more coming online over the next couple months. Wow. So, so you can go there and find links to all the shows that I produce and see what else I do. I write music too. It's all over those shows. marmaladecream.com.
And like all of the best people, is a really good barbell coach. So go follow Trent, and when he does a clinic or something like that, you can see that, and go get a little coaching. He'll lay hands on you and heal you like Robert Randolph might, kind of. Let's just go out on Sonny Treadway's closing prayer.
Let's look to the Lord. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent one from another. Everyone that love the Lord say, Amen.